Recording.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome my really good friend and colleague. We sometimes collaborate. So my really good friend, Holly Dahl, who owns HD Wellness. She is a nutritional consultant, a holistic nutritional consultant, and she has some amazing programs and a lot of our philosophies and ideas around food, lifestyle, hormones. They mesh so well, and I feel like we're on the same page. And so many of our customers, clients, friends, I think they could really benefit from a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. Holly participated in my full moon gathering the other day, and it was connecting to intuition. And I'm currently in the process of putting together an intuitive eating program. So just building that. And I thought that Holly's insights on hormones, food, would really be beneficial today for women. So full disclaimer, we are not medical doctors. We are not offering any medical advice. Anything that we talk about today is just our opinion and only that, and very generalizations. So please do not think that this is going to be a program for you and is going to fix any medical condition you have, because it's not. We're just having a conversation about hormones, health, intuition, women's stuff, and yeah. So Holly, thanks for joining me today, and thanks for coming to my moon gathering the other day. I really wanted to get your insights on women and their hormones. Now, I know that you have a little bit of a topic in your program about, different cycles and how we cycle with the moon. Was there anything that you would kind of like want to add or get into a little bit on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks so much for having me today on the podcast. I'm super excited to be here, and your moon gathering was amazing. I felt like I was carrying some really heavy energy, and the next day I was like, I've come back to myself. I really felt, that heaviness kind of dissipate, and it was amazing. So I'm definitely looking forward to the next one. So with women and our hormones and our cycles, I just feel that a lot of women don't understand their bodies and how they work, and they don't actually understand that there are 4 distinct phases of the cycle. And I think it's important to get to know our bodies, to understand this information, to educate yourself if you haven't been educated on this topic, because it's so critical when it comes to our overall health. Your period, it's kind of like a report card. Your cycle is kind of like a report card. I always say your body's talking to you, but are you listening? Are you listening? So when, and we've talked about this before, many women are cycling either with the new moon or the full moon. And why is that? And why does water affect us so much in regards to the moon?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I'm certainly not an expert on why it happens, but the moon, she is powerful. And,
Yes.
We are the creators of life, so it makes sense that we are, impacted by the moon. I don't know if that was a rhetorical question or...
No. But I was thinking about like the waves, and that, our bodies are made up of so much water, and the tides control the moon cycles. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. That's where I was going with that.
Okay. I was like, hot seat. I don't know.
I just took over your podcast. No, I'm really sorry. So, understanding that there are those 4 phases and how we can kind of eat to support where we are in our cycle. A lot of women deal with the PMS and like a lot of cravings and stuff like that going into their period, which makes sense because of the fluctuation in hormones, and cravings for comfort food and things like that are going to be more natural because your body's getting ready to shed the lining of your uterus, and that takes energy. So we get energy from sugar. When we're feeling like that, maybe we are turning more towards the comfort foods for that energy, or just to kind of, comfort ourselves in that emotional state. But I can tell you, eating to fuel your body will take away some of those cravings and some of those feelings. Because the problem with women is that we chronically undereat, but we also fail to eat enough fat and enough protein. And fat and protein are required for hormone balance, but they're also required to produce hormones in the body. So we're busy. We're like the snacky eaters. We're the quick eaters. So what do we eat? We eat things like crackers and cereal and bagels, like the quick carbs that give us that energy for a minute. And
the
then
scraps
yes.
left over on your kids' plate. It's usually like the crust of a grilled cheese or something. Yeah.
You're lucky if there's cheese on that. You're lucky if there's peanut butter on that, right? So we're eating to survive instead of thrive. And our body does not like that. So, you know, making sure that you're getting in those healthy fats and proteins to really support that. And I'm not saying that you won't have any cravings. Like our bodies are so smart, right? We crave chocolate. Chocolate has magnesium, which helps us relax. It promotes restful sleep. Like there's just so many things. Our bodies are perfect and we actually know exactly what we need, but we fail to listen.
Absolutely. I can, so from a food side, but also from like an energetic side, we go through different phases, like you said, with the moon, different phases through our cycle of the month, where we're in more feminine and more masculine energies, right? And I think that because our world is typically so masculine, go, 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 drive, 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 crush those goals, succeed, get those kids to sports, get those kids to this, get all the things done. I need to be the best mom ever and crushing life. And when we are, you know, shedding our uterine lining, we need to be a little bit more gentle, like, and leading up to that, right? We need to really honor that energy. And so that's where I think, bear with me as I kind of talk around this, but so many women are, you know, we're pushing, and we're not really honoring that feminine energy, that time where we need to slow down, take time, relax, fuel really well. So food typically comes for comfort, right? We're just wanting to like push through. We need that sugar fuel like you're talking about. And what would happen if we every month recognized, tracked, okay, this is when, you know, I'm starting to get these cravings. This is maybe where I need to shift my life a little bit. Maybe I just need to slow it down a little bit. I know, especially as like entrepreneurs or small business owners, like we don't always get time to, you know, take downtime because we're cycling. But perhaps we could maybe, you know, plan out a few more posts and then just put them up to, you know, automatically post. Or maybe you enlist the help of a friend to take your kids to their sports. Like, I know I'm really making this super simple, but when you combine the food, listening to your body and the energetics of your life, typically when your body is really revolting, so we haven't been feeding it well and we're not living in alignment, right? So we're just always pushing and our body is like, F you, you're gonna listen to me. And then eventually, you know, women get all of these, you know, terrible PMS symptoms or different medical conditions where they have to rest, right? So the body will eventually say, no more, until you hear it. And it's interesting how you talked about the chocolate. So chocolate's full of magnesium. The chocolate is also super grounding. If you're talking about energetic foods, same with coffee. Coffee is super grounding as well. Now I know so many women hit the coffee for that energy to get through, right? Which, you know, we don't want to be hitting it as a push through life. But yeah, there's a few grounding foods. And so I think that it's interesting how we crave certain foods for the, you know, the mineral content of it or the content of the food, but also energetically how it can enhance us through those cycles too. So
yeah, like the menstrual phase of your cycle, it's not a phase where you want to be pushing hard. It's not a phase where this is a time to actually go inward. It's a time to eat really nutrient dense foods. Grounding foods are really great. Anything that is grown in the ground. So think like beets, carrots, parsnips, Anything that supports the liver. Beets are great all around for hormones, but anything that supports the liver, like cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, anything like that, Brussels sprouts, amazing. But yeah, it's a time to go inward. So it's a time to journal. It's a time to still move your body, but what kind of movement are you doing, right? Yoga, gentle stretching. I feel like, you know, we've been taught like you have to be working out so hard and you have to be doing these crazy things, but you know what, your body doesn't like it. And you almost, it's like you're fighting with your body when you do that. You have to go inward during that phase. And then, you know, as you head into the ovulation phase, that's where, you know, you're perking up a little bit, right? So you have that, you know, your period's done and then you're like, I have so much energy and I feel great. Life is great. Then you can kind of get back to those other things that you want to do. Goal crushing.
Goal crushing. Yeah, exactly.
Goal crushing. Yeah, for sure.
So it's interesting because we do follow a little bit of different eating styles, but similar, right? As far as fueling for food, really good fats, higher proteins, especially for women. I tend to eat a little bit more low carb, but I do honor my body when it's asking for more fuel. I will, like, there's nothing bad about carbohydrates. It's just, I feel better when I don't eat a whole lot of it. And I know for myself, when we're fasting, typically once I start to bleed, I find fasting extremely easy. And it just happens. And it's almost like supporting that detox or that shedding that's happening. So for me, if anybody's thinking of fasting or playing around with fasting or starting an intermittent fasting, I find once you start bleeding, usually the week before, it's like, don't even try, because you're essentially forcing your body to try and do something that it is biologically engineered not to do, right? So yeah, I think that once you start bleeding, it's a really good time to perhaps, if you are interested in exploring that, to maybe start playing around with it. But just keep an eye out. I always tell people to keep data points, right? Like if you're not tracking your period or you're not tracking your food or your sleep, you're kind of just guessing at what's going on, right?
It's so true. It's so true. And so when you're tracking your cycle, the first day you bleed is the first day of your cycle till the next first day that you bleed. So a lot of women don't know that. So that's how we start to track our cycles. What I love and what I recommend for my clients is to use a food journal. So what I have in my Reboot, it's like a food mood journal, and we're tracking food, we're tracking sleep, we're tracking digestion, we're tracking water, mood, cravings, and things like that. And I like to use that because that is data that we're collecting that we can, you know, you start to see a trend. Okay, you know what? That day I had a really bad sleep. I didn't eat very much. And at 3 o'clock, I had coffee instead of, you know, eating when I was truly hungry. So it's interesting. You can start to see a trend, and MyFitnessPal will spit out numbers all day long, but it doesn't tell you how you feel. It doesn't tell you how you slept, your energy, your mood, or anything like that. So, I mean, I'm an old school girl. I like pen to paper, and start doing that for a while and see what your body's trying to tell you, right? Because MyFitnessPal will tell you calories and grams and how many steps you walked or whatever calories you burnt, but it's not telling you like the quality of life, right? It's not telling you the quality of the calories. So yeah. Anyways, that's my little rant about MyFitnessPal.
No, and I was actually I'm just gonna double down on that rant because for so many years, fitness coaches and dietitians, like nutritionists, all the people in health and wellness have been telling you calories in, calories out, calories in, calories out. And it's so much bullshit.
It is.
So much bullshit. And then they get clients to journal. And then I'm even guilty of it as well. Like 10 years ago, we used to get clients to journal, and then, you know, you'd mark food journals. How terrible. Like now looking back at that, the psychology of that is awful. Food's not good or bad.
You ate chips, a big X for you.
Damn it. Like food's not good or bad, but there are foods that are going to fuel our body. There's foods that your body can't recognize. You know, there's foods that will help sleep, like all this stuff. And we shouldn't, I don't want people to ever think that there's bad foods. Obviously there's more foods. There's foods that are nutrient dense. There's foods that are like anti-foods. And I think we also need to look at our behavior around food. So continuing on the rant with calories in, calories out, we know that that's bullshit now, right? Yeah. We know food fuels hormones. Women, we need to fuel our hormones. Now men, they can like take out soda and drop a gazillion pounds and change, right? But their bodies are not designed to grow children and keep children alive in famines, right? You know, they don't cycle every 28 to 30 days. So why are we treating men and women the same with food? Yeah. And with training for that matter too, right? So I'm an old school journaler as well, and journaling for data points. Journaling for data points. It's not meant to be a punishment. It's not meant to be a good, a bad. It's just so you have data points so that you can make those changes. Otherwise, you're just guessing. Even if you're like, I slept so good and I ate really good all week. There's typically something in there that you're like, ooh, that wasn't actually, you know, a food. Yeah. That was hydrogenated fats or whatever, right? So yeah, it's not data points. It's not a punishment, but we really, it is data points. It's not punishment. We really need to be doing that, I think, on a regular basis. And I find I get so much resistance, maybe not for you. Tell me if you agree, but I get so much resistance from a lot of the people I see on keeping a journal because there is so much shame around food. And what if somebody sees this?
Yeah.
Who cares if somebody sees what you ate or how you moved or how you slept, right? If you don't feel comfortable writing it on paper, put it in your phone. But yeah, please don't use a calorie counter because, yeah, we don't need that. Do you find that you get women who have shame around journaling or around writing down their food?
I do. Some of my private clients are just like, oh, like it. I feel like they think it's like a pain in the ass. And you know what? I'm like, okay, Holly spanks with a soft spoon, but you've invested to figure this out and I need you to journal for me. And then they usually are like, okay. I'm like, this is what we're going to look at. This is why I need you to write it down. And because we can see what you eat is going to affect your sleep and your energy. We can see if maybe there's some intolerances to foods, how you feel, how that's even going to affect your cycle. Right. So some of my private clients are like, you know, increasing their fat and their cycles are so much easier. Their periods aren't as long. They're not as heavy, you know, just from doing that through one cycle. It's amazing. So when we give our bodies what they actually need, they respond in a good way for us. Our bodies want to work for us. We're working against our bodies. And the funny thing with calorie counting is that we know that what we eat affects our blood sugar and that dictates the hormones that come out. So you can eat stuff that's going to put you into fat storing mode. You can eat stuff that's going to help you burn fat. Calories in and calories out doesn't work because your body doesn't do the same thing with chicken as it will with some cookies. And that's the important thing that you need to understand. So all those like little 100-calorie snack pack and all those things like that, it doesn't matter. It is the quality of the fuel of the food that you're giving your body.
The 100-calorie snack packs that you end up eating 4 of anyways.
And then you're still hungry. I used to eat those.
Hungry an hour later. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think this is a great segue into women who have rough periods or period issues. It's amazing how, even for myself, oh, my periods are painful, like when I first got them. So as a young woman who first got my period, maybe I had really bad cramping or, you know, maybe flow was heavy. And not even like a year and a half into getting my period, it's like, well, let's throw you on the pill to help control your cycle. And so I was on the pill for like years, a decade and a half. And so it was interesting. Once I finally got off the pill, I gave myself a copper IUD, so no hormones, but there's still a foreign object in your uterus affecting the pH, right? Yeah. And it was amazing how quickly my body changed. So my body changed shape when I went off the pill, and overall mood, it like lifted, felt so much better. And I find it's interesting. And then I was now trying to figure out, what is my cycle actually like, right? When does it come? What months are worse? You know, all the things that we talked about as far as making, you know, if you're not listening to your body, not fueling properly, not sleeping well, pushing, you usually pay for it the next month. Or if you listen, your cycle's so much better. So do you have any sort of insight? I know you have a program for young women, but do you have any insight for women who have daughters who've just gotten their cycle? I think so many young girls are like, oh, this is the worst. And I think too, there's a lot of, not saying that I like love it when I get my period, but realistically, it's not that bad. And I feel like we get a lot of programming about how terrible it is and how terrible our period's gonna be, how much cramping you're gonna get, how much pain you're gonna have, all the like terrible things that I feel like we get told about our cycle that perhaps we should be shifting our mindset around. What are you doing with your young women?
Well, absolutely. So, oh gosh, where to start here? A lot of young girls are being prescribed the birth control pill as this magical solution for, you know, like you said, heavy periods, cramps, even headaches and acne and sleep issues and you know, other things that are definitely a hormonal symptom, I would say. And so the problem with the pill is, well, there's many problems with the pill. So the problem with the pill is that it doesn't come without consequence, and it actually stops your body from ovulating. So, you know, when we think in terms of the pill, we kind of think of, well, it's just if we want to get pregnant or not get pregnant. But ovulation goes far beyond, like your fertility health goes far beyond wanting to be pregnant or not wanting to be pregnant. And when we put these young girls on the pill, they haven't even completed puberty yet. Like puberty spans about a decade. So now we're throwing the birth control pill into the mix. And so it's, you know, I get really frustrated. So last year I had a group of moms, it was like all around the same time, contact me and say like, you know, my daughter's having these symptoms with her periods and other things like that. And we've been recommended the birth control pill. And, you know, I said, let's do some journaling. So we got these girls to journal, and I was shocked. Like they were eating nothing. They were not sleeping. There were so many things. I was just like, okay, let's get them fueling their body. Let's get them taking care of themselves, prioritizing sleep, nutrition, good habits, because the pill, how long is your daughter going to be on the pill when you put her on and she's 12, 13, 14, 15, 10 years, 20 years? Like how long are these girls?
And then she comes off and is like, how come I'm not pregnant? Like how many people have infertility issues now, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that that's linked to the period. Like there's a whole crisis like going on in the world right now with what's affecting our fertility. But exactly. Then they come off and they're like, well, how come this stuff's not happening? Anyways, sorry.
So yeah, that's okay. So it was just, you know, it was very eye-opening to me, and my daughter is 10 and a half now. So this was a great time for me to write my program, Take Charge for Girls, it's a program for moms or girls, depending on how old your daughters are, like ages 8 to 18, I would say that this is for, but really helping them understand the body changes and the things that they can do to support their body, because your period shouldn't take you out. It shouldn't take you out. It shouldn't be painful. It shouldn't be like the worst ever. You know, emotions are high, hormones are fluctuating. We have to really teach our daughters to work with their bodies. And that is something that it's a reason why it's so important for us to understand what's going on so we can help our daughters. Because I'll tell you right now, all the stuff in my program is nothing that they will learn in sex ed. And that is the issue, is that they're not taught. We were never taught. And so we have to understand what's happening so we can best support our bodies. Because if you're not eating very much, and you're relying like on sugary things, and you're not sleeping because, you know, you're on your phone at night and things like that, you will have awful periods. You'll be so emotional. Like it's almost like common sense. We have to go back to the basics. And I'm not saying let's take the pill off the table. I'm saying let's try the least invasive stuff first and see what kind of a result we can get. Let's teach these daughters of ours to fuel their bodies, to love their bodies, to take care of their bodies, to have pride in their bodies. right? To recognize what their bodies are saying. And that's why even important for the girls to start tracking their cycles. Even when there's no period, there will start to be a cycle because of the fluctuation of hormones. So by like age 8, you can start tracking. Like I track for my daughter on my calendar when she's really grouchy. I'm like, ooh, she's got those couple days, right?
Yeah.
You know, and here's the thing, like, I know for her, if she waits too long to eat, it is like a full on, I'm sorry, I'm so hungry. Oh, why don't you just eat then, right? So it's teaching them, because the whole thing about us grabbing the crackers and not really eating and stuff, we do not want to be passing those habits down to our daughters, because they will suffer with the same hormonal symptoms that we have if we do that. You got to break the cycle.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, that was lots.
No, I loved it. It was perfect because, yeah, we need to be, educating our kids and changing the narrative around our cycle, around, you know, that it's terrible, that it's awful. I work with a lot of women who are perimenopause and menopausal, and most of them don't really have anything wonderful to say about their cycle.
Yeah.
Because, you know, their hormones are now going to the opposite. Some are experiencing like extremely heavy shedding while they're transitioning into, you know, not having their periods. And I often wonder, so clearly I'm not in menopause, I haven't experienced this, but from the research that I've done, having these extreme symptoms, same with our young daughters, same with, you know, women who are of childbearing, you know, age, who are having children, is that these extreme symptoms are common, but they're not normal. Exactly. And so if we can start taking care of our health and really having that awareness around our cycle, how we're fueling, are we living in alignment with what our body is telling us, or are we just fighting our body and fighting, you know, energetically what's going on in our life, right? Just pushing through and not fueling. Like if we started at, you know, Isla's age at 10 and a half, how are our symptoms going to be when we do hit menopause? Or how are my symptoms going to be having taken care of my, you know, my health for so long? Like it's an interesting kind of concept. It's the same with like disease prevention. You know, as we age, if we kind of take care of our health, movement, exercise, mind, body, spirit, we're going to have a better quality of life later, typically.
Absolutely. Right? And I feel that way too. Like I think, because I would say that, well, my clients kind of range, I would say from like 30 to like 65 plus, but how many of those women who are, you know, in the perimenopause, menopausal, postmenopausal, just had awful lives because of their periods and their cycles and stuff, because they weren't taught how to manage their symptoms, how to use food as fuel, how to really take care of themselves. And now they're going into menopause and they're probably like, thank God, right? But it wouldn't have had to be so bad and so awful if they were taught this stuff at a young age. That's why I'm really passionate about it. And I don't want my daughter to suffer with the stuff that I went through just because I didn't know. So yeah, I can totally understand that.
So I just recently ran a 5-month experiment on myself.
I love it.
So at the beginning of COVID, I was thinking, I'm like, oh man, not that my periods are not typically bad. You know, I don't really have a whole ton of symptoms as long as I'm keeping my diet good. You know, when we were in Europe eating gnocchi every day and pasta and having a bottle of wine for supper. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a couple periods where I was like, ugh, I'm not feeling great, but I didn't fuel my body well, right? So when COVID first happened, I was like, I've got at least 12 to 15 years left of menstruation. What would it look like if I got the Mirena? You know, the hormonal IUD where you're not supposed to, you eventually don't get your period or you get it extremely light. And I did tons and tons of research on it, like hours of research, because That's how I roll. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll give this a try. If it's as amazing and does everything that it says, and it's mostly just supposed to affect the uterus and not the entire body, blah, blah, blah. So I got this thing and I hated it. Hated it. My uterus didn't like it either. There was so much cramping. My periods, although way, way lighter, were lasting like 14 days. Yeah, it was just like my body odor changed. Wasn't like, don't worry, I didn't have any vaginitis or anything, but just my body odor changed. I was like, that's not how I smell. It was really, really weird. And obviously, my mucosal lining changed. It was just definitely different. And I was having a lot of cramping when I wasn't bleeding throughout the month. So my doctor was great. She was like, I'd like to just see if we have it. I phoned her and said, I think I want to get that, like, I want this out. It's been 5 periods, 4 months. Like, I want this thing out. She was great. I was expecting actually quite a bit of pushback, being like, well, you're supposed to wait the 6 months to a year. And I'm like, She was great. She's like, well, maybe we should just see if it's in the right spot. I was like, no, just take it out. So long story short, she takes it out, and instantly my body was like screaming at me before I made the appointment to get it out. It was like, get this thing out of me! You know how you hear like your body talking to you? And it was like, get this out! So I got it out, and instantly it was just like, I felt this wave of kind of just relaxation come over me, especially in my uterus area, which I know this sounds super weird, but women, our uterus, it does talk to us. So listen. So she felt very relieved once it was out. And yeah, I would say probably like 2 weeks later, my mood started to get better. My body instantly changed over the course of 6 weeks when I first got it inserted. My body went back to the shape that it was when I took the pill. So although it was different hormone formulation, my body changed shape. And I put 12 to 15 pounds on in 6 weeks, keeping everything the same. So I know some people gain weight, some people don't. That wasn't really the point. Like, my body is functioning well, it's heavy, or it's healthy. Although it was heavier, that wasn't necessarily the big deal. It was like, ooh, even the texture of my fat was a bit different, quite a bit more dimply. I'm a naturally poor detoxer, so there was kind of symptoms that I could see on my body where I'm like, ooh, I'm really struggling to detox. Because I don't know, with the pill, there can be, like, you get depleted on certain minerals, right? So there's, what do you call that? I can't think of the name right now, but like...
Deficiency?
Yeah, deficiency, but it's like drug-induced deficiencies, or like pharmaceutical-induced deficiencies. Yeah. Anyways, long story short, I'm like rambling here about this. So I got it out, my mood started to lift. My body has started to change slightly to go back, not nearly as fast as it gained, but it's starting to go back. And it was really interesting how my food cravings, just before getting it out, typically I eat very heavy protein. My body just likes to eat fairly heavy protein and higher fat. And I usually fuel based on what my body is telling me that it wants. Obviously, sometimes, I fall into the bag of chips. And then I have to look at, okay, is this my blood sugar or is this what my body wants, right?
Yeah.
But my body was craving kale, like dark cruciferous vegetables. That's all I wanted to eat. I didn't even want to eat protein. And I had about a week before I could get my IUD out. So kale and anchovies, like all this stuff that I know my body uses to detox, and specifically to detox hormones like estrogens, environmental estrogens, toxins. So I thought it was really interesting, like, hey, my body is needing this fuel. I got it out, and I'm still craving the vegetables, like quite a bit of cravings for vegetables, way less protein. I don't want nearly as much protein, but I do want fats and vegetables, helping get all that stuff out.
Yeah.
And the doctor had said, you will bleed after, and then, in 4 to 6 weeks, you'll get your period like normal. because this one wasn't supposed to impact ovulation, but anyways, and it was crazy. I didn't actually bleed at all. And then my uterus started shedding off in chunks. Like, we're talking the biggest clots ever. I have not given birth to children, but like clots that big, I could feel them coming out. So this is like clearly just seeing how my body was shedding in a way that was not normal and how it normally does. I was like, oh, I'm very, very thankful that I got that out. And so a little experiment for me to see what my body was needing, how it changed. And, you know, I didn't actually go back to a copper IUD or anything like that, but it was just a really interesting experiment to see. Well, I do have some awareness around that, but how many other women would get their IUD out and be like, oh, my periods are just so terrible. I don't know if all women get clotting or anything like that once they get their IUD out, but I'm like, so how many of these symptoms are caused by our body actually detoxing and shedding all of these hormones and all of these things that we've been putting in our body, and now we're thinking that it's linked back to our natural cycle and our body hates us.
Yeah, or a lot of women I think are just on continuous birth control, so they don't get the chance to even figure out their cycles or track them, right? Like before I got pregnant with Sawyer, I read this amazing book, and it was called Taking Charge of Your Fertility. It's by Toni, Toni, I can't remember her last name, but it was an amazing book. Like that's where I learned about ovulation. All of a sudden I was very interested because I wanted to get pregnant, right? But that was where I first learned about ovulation and the different cycles, the different phases within the cycle. But when you're constantly, like you've been on birth control, you don't really even know what's a normal period. What's a normal period, quote unquote. And that's why it's very frustrating to see a lot of young girls being put on the pill at such a young age, because they're not finished developing and they really don't get the opportunity to get to know their body and what it needs. And I'm laughing because when you said like you wanted the kale, right? Usually, like, and that is a liver supporting food. So that's telling me that your body is, you're understanding that your body needs to detox. When I'm super stressed, I'll crave like cabbage and things like that. Again, a liver supporting. It's like, why do I need all this lemon water? Why does my body want cabbage so much? But it is to detox those hormones. And the thing is that we're exposed to so many things like environmental toxins, things that affect our hormonal levels and also mimic hormones in the body. So it's not just like, okay, the birth control pill, it's all this other stuff that
now we're adding
perfumes,
we're adding in, especially women in their like total fertile times, right? Makeup, body lotions, shampoos, like all the stuff with the chemicals in it that are acting as environmental estrogens. I mean, you can talk much more on this stuff than I can, but it's like, we're just bombarding our systems with all of this stuff.
One of the best things that you can do is get rid of anything that has fragrance. Anything that has fragrance. Like if you do that, you will be doing yourself the biggest favor. I know, because here's the thing too. Some of the things that influence hormones, we can't control. Some of the things we can control, right? We can control our food and what we put in our body and what we put on our body and things like that. But you can't control when you go outside and it's, you know, there's pollution, or maybe you need to go to Shoppers Drug Mart and you accidentally walk through the perfume aisle and you're just, you know, feel like you're having an attack from all the fragrance. But if you can get rid of fragrance, like, and think about things that smell, not just like perfume, but like your laundry soap, your dish soap, things that you use to clean your house, candles, air fresheners. You know, we basically use only essential oils, and I use unscented everything that I can possibly have, because I see how sensitive I am to the fragrance. You know, if I can get into someone's car and I know if they have perfume on, and I'm almost, you know, choking. But it's interesting. Until you get rid of it, you won't really know. But when you get rid of it, you notice right away.
I'm always like cringing at Christmas or when Bath and Body Works has a sale, and it's all the tweens and all the young girls who are lined up to smell like vanilla cotton candy, and they're just like layered, right? You have your body wash that smells like it, then you have your lotion, you have your body spray, and I'm just like, why are we doing this? Even for young boys, like I know that this is geared for women, but think about, so if this is impacting our hormonal health as women who have estrogen, how are these hormones impacting our boys? Or how are these chemicals impacting our boys? How are we impacting their, you know, puberty and prepubescent hormones with all of this stuff that we're like, make sure to put on your hardcore Axe deodorant because we don't want you to stink.
Yeah, but research shows like sperm counts are down in men. I know my son Sawyer, so he's 13, and you know he loves nothing more than to put on disgusting deodorant like Old Spice or Axe or anything. Like I don't want him using anything like that, but it does get more difficult as they get older. So just even educating them, this is why you wouldn't want to use that.
Yeah, my 17-year-old won't listen. He's like,
I mean,
yeah, I smell good. Like
the ladies like it.
Yeah, right.
It's just, well, as long as they're not choking when they're giving you a hug, I don't know what else to tell you.
And I'm like, well, maybe if you were, you know, eating a little cleaner, maybe your body odor wouldn't smell as bad. Just.
It's true. Yeah, it is true. Ryan will probably kill me for saying this, but I don't think Ryan wears deodorant. He just doesn't, like, he just doesn't smell. But he, you know, he eats really well and we live a healthy lifestyle, and that plays a huge part.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Dale too, he doesn't typically wear deodorant, or if he does, he'll use my like hippie stuff. I got him on the hippie deodorant.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't really smell either. But I do notice a change if he's been like, you know, out with the boys or we've been traveling and eating poor. There is a difference in the body odor, but.
Yeah, like alcohol and things like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, your body knows what's good for you and what's not.
And it will tell you.
And it will tell you. And that's where I think intuition, you know, as women, we have such strong intuition. It's like we need to return back to that. I don't know if men are as intuitive, or if that's just not a thing that's ever really been talked about. I mean, I know that there are men that are spiritual teachers and spiritual gurus, and they're quite intuitive and they're empaths and everything. But I just know as women, like we have that strong intuition, and anytime we go against it, like if you don't follow your gut, it's bad news, and you know right away. You know right away that it is bad news.
Yeah, you're like, oh man, absolutely. And that's kind of what I'm wanting to do with the intuitive eating program that I'm putting together. So although it's called intuitive eating, I haven't quite fine-tuned the name of it. We have to eat every day, and we are gonna focus on food, but I really want to focus on our patterns with food, our programming with food, and how we're using food as comfort or a distraction or a reward, and getting those distractions out of the way so that we can tap back into our intuition. So we can hear our uterus screaming at us, take this thing out of me. Or, you know, when you're taking your birth control pill or whatever, and it's saying, I don't want this, like I'm not well, right? Or whatever. This is just an example. But maybe, yes, women are very intuitive. And I think with all of the noise and all of the programming that we've been given, like our periods are terrible, ugh, you're a woman now, you're gonna bleed like this for the rest of your life, pat, right? Where if we change that programming and if we came back to our body, listen to our intuition, listen to what it needed, we could really tap into our magnetism or our strengths, right? Like how many women do, I see this all the time, I'm gonna rant. So you guys can fast forward rant if you don't want to listen. But I see women all the time who are unhealthy. They're dealing with, you know, mental health issues. They're dealing with body injuries, and almost always it links back to them pushing for years and years and years out of alignment. So they're not necessarily happy in their home life, they're not happy in their career life, or they don't know what they want to do. And honestly, most of these women never ever knew what they wanted to do and didn't even know how to find their like compass or come back to themselves, right? They've been so detached with whatever programming, right? Women are typically, it's just very generalization, but we live in a very masculine world, right? And even as little girls, like, we're dressed up, we're told to be pretty and quiet and cute, and you know, if you're a good girl, you know, bring cookies and like whatever. I'm just generalizing, but we're taught to be very submissive and to, you know, if you get emotional about something or emotions come up, oh, she's just crazy, it's her time of the month. Well, your time of the month is fucking telling you something that you need to listen to, and these emotions are coming up, although we do get emotional, these emotions are coming up because they need to be cleared. Maybe you haven't been listening to them. Maybe you haven't been dealing with them. This stuff will flare its ugly head, like, if you don't take care of it, right? So emotional stuff, fueling, super important, because if you're not fueling with good foods, now you're fighting, like, sugar is what? How many more times addictive than cocaine? Right? So now we're fighting sugar, we're fighting all these like chemicals that we're putting in our body or we're exposed to, and we haven't actually figured out how to listen. So we're like, what is this? Am I just emotional? Is there something wrong with me? Or is it something that we haven't dealt with and we've kind of stuffed down for years and years and years? And food is such a trigger for people. Right?
Yeah.
We're using it for comfort. We have to eat every day. We have to feed our family. So are we, right? Like, where are we masking? Where are we rewarding? And where are we not listening? Because we have this noise of what we're kind of putting in our body or we're seeing on a regular basis through social media or all of this stuff. And so I think returning back to our whole self, our true self, coming back to that intuition and learning to listen to it. And for me, I think food is the catalyst to really show people where they're masking, where they're hiding. And then you can start to hear, once you have those awarenesses, then you can start to hear it, right?
Yeah.
And then you practice hearing it and you're like, oh, then you build that confidence in it. And then before you know it, you're actually living your life more in alignment. You're figuring out, like, I don't know how many women I see who are in their 50s, 60s, who never even like pictured what they wanted to do with their life once their children left home, right? Like, they just are so, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if that's truly what made you happy, awesome. But they don't even know, and they haven't listened for so many years. So it will take some practice. I'm really rambling, but we'll take some practice, but learning to listen. And I think you nailed it on the head with teaching our daughters this stuff at a younger age. Like, they're going to zoom past us. They'll compound that so much faster than we are learning it now, because they've had practice, right? When one generation can figure it out, the next generation can do it faster.
Absolutely.
This is how we're going to change, like, generations in the future. Even though it seems silly, like, people are like, oh my God, Anndee, really? We're going to change generations in the future? But this is super important, I think.
It is.
How we can get our women to step into power.
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, just in the last couple months, I've seen so many women just step forward into their businesses with new ideas. One of my friends, she's 50. She just launched a brand new business. To me, that's so inspiring, like, so inspiring, right? So I feel like we've had many years of, you know, like, living in this really masculine world and not really listening to ourselves and not knowing what the hell we wanted to do. And now it's like, it's starting to shift a little bit. It's really nice to see. It's really, really nice to see.
I agree. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not shitting on men. I'm not shitting on masculine energy. Like, women, whatever happened in your life, we can't blame men for this. The only thing we can do is make these changes within ourselves, teach our daughters how to do it, and to, like, embody that, listening to the intuition. Like, she'll guide you. It'll be good. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. This is not a blame game. This is not the patriarchal world is terrible. It's hey, we're here. Let's tap back in and let's change it going forward.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I think it's changing in terms of women supporting women, because typically, like, we used to go into our huts and bleed together, and we had that village and we had that community and we had that support. And I feel like that was like disconnected for a long time. You know, even when Sawyer was a baby, I lived in Okotoks and I had like this mom's group, and there was like 10 of us and we all had babies at the same time. And it was great because I felt supported. But then we moved and I lost that, and I never had that with Isla. And so I spent many years kind of just feeling alone, not having family near to help us, doing all the things, really just struggling and ending up burning out ultimately, which I see a lot in my clients too. Like, a lot of women have just hit that burnout phase because they've been on autopilot for so long. And that's where the awareness comes in, right? Like 95% of your day is on autopilot. You don't even think about it. So tapping back into, hey, who are you and what do you really want? I think it's so important.
So important. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I could rant all day about this, but I won't keep people any longer, and I won't keep you any longer. So thank you so much for giving us all of your wisdom and spending your time with us. And I'm sure that we will be doing another podcast in the future.
Always a pleasure. Oh yeah, I'll come back anytime. I love to talk.
Perfect. And I'll drop down all of your info in the show notes so people can get a hold of you and follow you. So, all right.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks so much.